I first became fascinated with parasites when I did my undergraduate in zoology over 15 years ago now. And I was looking at how they alter the neurobiology and behavior of the host. Most parasites have to move through a sequence of hosts in order to complete their life cycle. And the one that I worked on was Toxoplasma canis. It usually lives in the dog, in the intestine of the dog. It's a roundworm, and it passes in the eggs and the feces from dog to dog. But sometimes these eggs can get out into the environment and they can infect other mammals, including mice and humans. They can't complete their life cycle in humans and mice. So what happens is the eggs will hatch out, burrow through the wall of the intestine, migrate around your body before becoming lodged in various organs, including the brain. And what happens when they get into the brain is they may alter the behavior of the host in order to complete their life cycle. So I looked at how mice that were infected with this parasite changed their behavior, and they became much more active and had this kind of fearless behavior where they would avoid predator scent marking. Now, obviously, this is fairly risky for a mouse in the wild because it means they're going to be predated upon by a range of predators, including dogs and more likely foxes. But for the parasite, it means they get to their true host. When I finished my undergraduate degree, I went on and looked at the underlying causes of mental illness, including depression. In particular, I was interested in the genes that regulate both the production and reception of neurotransmitters, including serotonin and dopamine, and how this can contribute to the causes of psychiatric disease. But what I really should have done is just stuck with parasites. Toxoplasma gondii, this is the parasite that is in cat feces and associated with cat litter. And this is the most successful human parasite that there has ever been. Over a third of the human population are infected at any one time. That means a third of this room has the parasite. It lies dormant in your organs, including the brain, and it will remain there for your lifetime. And you get it from contact with, obviously, cat feces, contaminated meat, or soil. Now, researchers have looked at how it affects rodents, because it can affect rodents as well in the wild, and how it changes their behavior to allow the parasite to get to its final host, the cat. And what it does is it makes them, again, more active, but it also makes them fearless, and they will actually become physically attracted to the scent of a cat, and they will spend a lot of time in the presence of the scent. So if it's having this control over the brains of rats and mice, what is it doing in our brain? Are we going to become fearless as well? And is it affecting how we assess risk? Well, researchers in Prague have found that people who are involved in car crashes, if they have toxoplasmosis, they have the parasite Toxoplasma, they are 2 to 3 times more likely to be involved in a car crash. Now, it does affect your reaction times, but it may also be that you have an altered perception of risk and you may be becoming more fearless. It also affects how attractive we view, how we judge how attractive the opposite sex is. And in infected rats, they found that infected males are more attractive to uninfected females than uninfected males. And the parasite can actually pass in the semen into the unaffected female, infecting both her and her subsequent pups. So it can be a sexually transmitted disease. In humans, they found that men who were infected with the parasite were thought to be more masculine, so it may also be a sexually transmitted disease in humans, and changing our behaviours to allow it to be passed on. So how does it actually change our behaviour? Well, what it does is it hijacks our dopamine system. It increases the amount of dopamine that's in our brains, and the cells that produces will pump out dopamine, but it will also produce its own dopamine, and it's the only parasite we know that can do this. Now, dopamine is involved in our reward and pleasure systems in the brain, which is obviously involved in sexual behaviour. It's involved in our fear perception and risk assessment, and also our attention centres. And this is where mental illness comes in, because there's another disease that is characterised by this increase in dopamine in the brain, and it's schizophrenia. And they found that people who have toxoplasmosis are 2 to 3 times more likely to develop schizophrenia than those who don't have it. And when you treat rats who are infected with the parasite with antipsychotic drugs used to treat schizophrenia, it will reverse the fearless behaviour that they had, or the fatal feline attraction. There may be even historical evidence of the link between schizophrenia and toxoplasmosis. And the latter half of the 18th century is when schizophrenia really became prevalent, and this happened at the same time that there was a trend in cat keeping in places like Paris and London, sort of left-wing places. And with the trend in cat keeping, you saw a huge increase in the amount of schizophrenia that was diagnosed. So that brings us back to the original parasite that I studied, Toxoplasma, that may also lodge in our brain for our lifetimes. Is it going to contribute to our behaviour and how we view the world? Is there going to be a whole new branch of medicine called based on parasitology, which is parasitological psychiatry? And who's really in control of what you do? Is it a third of this audience? Is their behaviour going to be controlled by a parasite or a little single-celled animal living in their brain? The end.